Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. You ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
All right, so today we are looking at a blog post from kianmeng.org, and it is titled Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 91. Another guppy spawn.
Another guppy spawn.
Another guppy spawn. So, uh, we're going to be looking at guppies today,
Okay.
and it was published on March 11th, 2025.
Right.
So pretty recent.
Right.
And we're going to be diving into, all things guppies and a few other things that this blogger talks about.
Yeah, this blogger seems to be on quite the fish-keeping journey.
They really do. And they have been for a while. This is part 91.
Wow, that's commitment.
So what we're going to look at today is, what can we learn from this person's journey and what might surprise us about keeping fish?
Sounds good, I'm ready.
All right, so right off the bat, the blogger Ang mentions some exciting news. They have a new batch of guppy fry.
Oh, baby guppies.
Tiny little baby guppies. And they are swimming near the surface of their outdoor pond. Now, I have to admit, I'm more of an indoor aquarium person.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges and rewards of breeding guppies in an outdoor environment?
Well, outside you have to think about things like temperature. Fluctuations that can be more extreme outdoors than in. Guppies have a very specific temperature range for breeding.
Oh, okay.
So maintaining that in a pond can be really tricky. And then on top of that, you've got predators, birds, bigger fish, even insects could pose a threat to the little baby guppies.
Yeah.
The fry.
So it sounds like outdoor guppy breeding requires a whole other level of, just kind of vigilance.
For sure.
But Ang seems to have it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
They also mentioned being fascinated by the root growth of their water wisteria.
Okay.
Even pondering different propagation techniques.
Interesting.
So what is it about water wisteria roots that would make a fish keeper so enthusiastic?
So water wisteria is known for its elongated roots. They extend from the stems. And these roots, they're like little nutrient-grabbing powerhouses. They help to anchor the plant, which is important, especially in pond where there might be currents.
Oh, okay.
And so what's fascinating is those elongated roots give water wisteria a real competitive advantage, especially in ponds that are nutrient poor.
Okay.
So they can thrive where other plants struggle a little bit.
That makes a lot of sense. So Ang is considering propagating the water wisteria through cuttings, but also contemplating letting it grow naturally. So how do these root characteristics factor into that decision-making process?
Well, so those elongated roots make water wisteria super easy to propagate. You just snip off a section with some healthy roots, and it'll likely just take off as a new plant.
Wow.
So that makes water wisteria a really great choice for beginner pond enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty foolproof when it comes to propagation, but it's not quite that simple. Ang also notes that water wisteria, it grows much slower than other aquatic plants like the common salvinia that they mentioned.
Oh, that's a great point. So it's
Yeah.
like weighing the pros and cons of each plant's growth habit. What are the implications of choosing a faster growing plant like salvinia versus a slower, more methodical grower like water wisteria?
Yeah, that's a good question. So faster growing plants like salvinia can be great. They can provide that quick coverage and prevent algae blooms,
Oh, okay.
but they can also become invasive if you don't manage them carefully.
Yeah.
It's almost like imagine trying to keep up with a really hyperactive puppy.
Oh, wow.
Might be a lot of work, but also brings, a certain energy to the space. Slower growing plants like water wisteria, they're more like that, wise old dog who's content to just chill in the corner.
I like that.
They require a little bit more patience, but they add a different kind of beauty and complexity to the pond.
This focus on careful observation reminds me of another point that Ang made about their water wisteria. They were really excited about how the roots were developing. What is it about these roots that would get a fish keeper so enthusiastic?
Well, it goes back to those elongated roots. They really are the stars of the show when it comes to water wisteria. Those roots, they're not just good at, grabbing nutrients. They also play a crucial role in oxygen exchange.
Oh, right.
That's essential for a healthy pond environment, especially for the fish and other aquatic life.
So that makes sense. Healthy roots, healthy ponds. I'm still curious about this whole propagation dilemma, though. Ang seems a little bit torn between, giving their water wisteria a helping hand through cuttings or just kind of letting nature run its course. And I can relate to that. Sometimes I feel like I want to micromanage my own garden, but then I have to remind myself that nature often knows best.
Yeah. It's that classic dilemma, isn't it? Control versus letting go. It makes you think about, our relationship with the natural world. How much should we intervene and how much do we trust nature's wisdom? It's such a great point. I mean, it's like a microcosm of so many other decisions that we face in life, like parenting. Do we try to mold our children into, a specific image, or do we give them the space to discover their own path?
Exactly. And there's no easy answer, is there? It's about finding that delicate balance,
Mm.
respecting the natural order while also recognizing that we have the power to influence it.
So how can we apply that to Aang's situation with the water wisteria? What factors might make them decide to intervene or to take a more hands-off approach?
Well, I think one key factor is, what is Aang hoping to achieve? What's their goal with the water wisteria? Are they looking for really fast growth to quickly establish that coverage, or are they okay with a slower, more organic spread? Another thing to think about is the balance of the existing plant species in the pond. So if that salvinia is already growing like crazy, introducing a bunch of water wisteria cuttings might create too much competition.
I see what you mean. So it's like each plant has its own role to play. You don't want one to kind of steal the show or crowd out the others. Right, exactly. And that's where observation is so important. Aang talked about being really fascinated by the way the water wisteria roots were developing. That close attention lets you know what's happening and kind of sense those subtle cues from the pond itself.
So they're really listening to what the pond is telling them. That reminds me of something else that Aang mentioned, those guppy fry swimming near the surface. How might the decision to propagate the water wisteria affect them?
That's a good question. It's all about thinking about the needs of everyone in the pond, right? More water wisteria means more shelter for the guppy fry. That would help protect them from those predators we talked about. But if it grows too much, it might also limit their swimming space or make it harder for them to find food.
Right. It's like everything is connected. It's a delicate web,
Yeah.
and you can't make a decision in isolation.
Yeah, you've got it. And that's what makes fish keeping so interesting. It's a constant process of learning, adapting, and making those decisions that affect the entire ecosystem.
And Aang is embracing that challenge. They're not just going through the motions. They're actively engaged. They're observing, questioning, experimenting. I find that inspiring.
Yeah, me too. And the fact that they're sharing their journey online is great. It lets other people learn alongside them.
Okay, so we've talked about water wisteria, guppies, the challenges of keeping things balanced. But I have a feeling there's more to uncover. Aang seems to be into a lot of different things. Gardening, programming, music, even health. Do you think those seemingly unrelated pursuits could actually be influencing their approach to fish keeping?
That's a really interesting question. I think it speaks to how our knowledge and experiences are all connected. What we learn in one part of life can really affect other areas, even if we don't realize it.
That's so true. I'm a terrible cook, but I have found that my love of gardening has made me a much more patient and observant cook.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I pay more attention to those subtle changes in texture and aroma. I'm
Yeah.
more willing to just kind of experiment with different flavors.
I love that analogy. I can see how a skill like programming, with all that logical thinking and problem solving, could make someone approach fish keeping more analytically. Maybe Aang is using their coding skills to keep track of, water parameters or analyze plant growth or even, make a super customized feeding schedule for the fish.
Wow. That would be really cool. It's like they're bringing a whole other set of tools and perspectives to their hobby. What about music? Could that influence their pond management at all?
Definitely. Music is all about creating a cohesive whole. Harmony, balance. I can see Aang applying that artistic sensibility to the pond. Carefully choosing plants, not just for their individual beauty, but also for how they work together, how they complement each other.
And don't forget the patience you need to learn an instrument. I bet that comes in handy when you're waiting for those slower growing plants like the water wisteria.
Oh, absolutely. It's about embracing the journey, understanding that some things just take time.
So it seems like all of Aang's interests, they're all connected. They all come together to inform how they approach fish keeping. It's like we're not just, a collection of separate hobbies and passions. We're this complex and interconnected whole.
Well said. I think that's a really valuable lesson we can take away from Aang's story. Learning and growth can happen in unexpected places, and the connections we make between those seemingly different areas of knowledge, they can lead to all sorts of new insights and a deeper appreciation for the world around us.
It's pretty amazing how, something like a fish pond can, make you think about so many things.
It really is.
Mhm.
It just shows how Aang can take their experience and share it in a way that, gets other people thinking too. It's not just about, what they're doing. It's about making us think alongside them and question what we think we know and appreciate the complexities of the world around us, the natural world.
Speaking of complexities, let's go back to that big question. If you were Aang and you had to make that decision about the water wisteria propagation, which way would you go? Would you be like, team intervention, snipping those cuttings and planting them, or
Yeah.
would you just let nature do its thing?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think I might be tempted to do a little bit of both. Maybe propagate some of the cuttings in a more controlled area just to see what happens, and then let the rest of the water wisteria grow on its own. That way I could, try out nurturing that new growth and also respect the plant's natural way of doing things.
So kind of like a hybrid approach.
Yeah.
That's great. And I bet you'd learn a lot too. You could compare the growth rates, see if the roots develop differently, and see how each approach affects the whole pond.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like a little mini experiment inside the bigger experiment.
Okay, so you've made your decision, you planted your cuttings, or maybe you decided just leave it alone. What do you do next? What kinds of things do you need to keep an eye on to make sure everything in the pond is, happy and healthy?
Well, you got to check the water regularly. You want to keep an eye on things like pH, ammonia, nitrates, just to make sure the water quality is good for both the fish and the plants. And then you've got the visual check. Look at the water wisteria, make sure it's growing well. Check for any pests or diseases, and watch how those guppies are doing, how they're interacting with their environment.
So it's all about that back and forth,
Yeah.
observation and intervention.
Yeah.
You're responding to what you see, making some changes, and then watching again to see how everything's affected.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about reacting to problems. It's about trying to anticipate issues before they even happen. Like if I noticed the salvinia was starting to take over, I might introduce some fish that like to eat it. That's a natural way to keep it in check.
That's a great idea. Using nature to help keep things balanced, it reminds us that we don't always need to go for those big interventions or chemical solutions. Sometimes the best answers are the ones that work with nature, not against it.
Exactly. And I think that's a big takeaway from Eng's blog. It's not about, trying to control nature or make it do what we want. It's about understanding how everything's connected, working with that delicate balance, and partnering with nature to make things thrive.
Very well said. And with that, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a question to think about. We've been talking about the balance of different plants in the pond. But what about the fish? Could the guppies themselves be affecting how certain plants grow? Could their eating habits, or even the way they move around, create little pockets in the pond that favor one type of plant over another? Think about that.
Ooh, that's a really good question. There's always more to learn, right?
That's right. Always new connections to make. And if this deep dive has got you interested in fish keeping or aquatic plants, or just how life works in a pond, we encourage you to go out and learn more. There's so much out there to discover.
And remember, even if you don't have a pond, you can still take what we've learned from Eng and apply it to other parts of your life. Be curious, keep learning, and never underestimate how powerful it is to observe and make thoughtful decisions.
I love that. Great advice. Well, that's it for us for now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.